Welcome to False Flag, the podcast made to cut through the propaganda and doublespeak and empower a grassroots activism, and most importantly, to take back a government of and for the people.
So Nike was in the movie, and they had it down to 10,000ths of a second how long it took to construct a shoe, and it was supposed to take 6.6 minutes, which was 8 cents that they paid in labor for that 6.6 minutes to make that shoe. Okay, well, 8 cents.
That's 80 cents an hour.
Well, there you go.
According to my arithmetic, I don't know.
Yeah, no, but I'm saying that's the type of exploitation that most Americans don't know about. So when you're buying a Nike shoe, you're wearing something that actually is worth 8 cents, but you just paid $190 for that shoe. And at the same time, you only gave 80 cents an hour to the kid, the 13-year-old that's building that shoe in
and that's
Taiwan.
what tariffs would protect us from. But that's a dirty word these days.
Oh, you're like Apple. You know how that one factory that they've got all the crap about overworking the people and
jumping off and all that.
They're right now they're doing a thing where they're going to completely automate it, so get rid of all the people.
That would solve that problem about unhappy workers, wouldn't it?
Yeah.
Well, and I mean, even the movie, and there's a link to YouTube where you can actually watch this movie free of charge. And I encourage all of our people that listen to us.
Walmart also.
Yeah. But in there, they talk about how these news broadcasters had came up with a segment looking at RGBH and what Monsanto was doing, putting into the milk, and how that was not healthy. And what happened? The movie shows that the news corporation was... Monsanto got in touch and said, we can't allow this out, so and basically fired him over it.
There's an example of that locally. Again, we're supposed to just kind of half anonymous or whatever, but there is a local TV station that's about 90% of its ad is a local car dealership. Now, this car dealership is notorious for selling cars you cannot afford, and then having very strong-armed collection policies, having kind of, let's just say, not the most honest reputation in its dealer. The in-your corner part won't touch it because it's where they get all their ad revenue from. Will not.
So it's not news. Huh?
Not news.
Don't want to hear about it.
Which,
and I mean, the last election cycle.
Oh yeah.
They both candidates. Both candidates. They spent so much ad revenue on these places that they would call up and go, "I didn't like the way you treated my guy last week. Either you bring him back on, treat him nicer, or I'm pulling next week's ads."
Yeah. Well, they spent $1 billion.
Wow.
Yeah.
Wow. But, we're going to be talking soon. That leads us into progressive media, alternative media. We're going to have a whole podcast on media, so we won't get into all of that.
I guess that's a different subject from corporations.
But yeah, corporations don't care about the toxic waste, the pollution, and most Americans right now act like their hands are tied. Our hands are not tied.
Right.
If we bound together, if we came together, if there's grassroots activism, we could change things. But the complacency is just bad.
It's demanding accountability from your state representatives. This is not a national issue. This is not federal government. The corporate charters are issued and controlled by the state, every state. And so that's your state's attorney and the secretary of state and that's all those guys. The corporation commission. We have one of those. I'm sure every state has something like that.
There's a P.J. Rourke. You ever heard that comedian?
Yes.
He was doing a benefit thing for the Republicans. He's kind of he's kind of a political comedian. He kind of skewers both sides, but he definitely leans Republican conservative. Anyway, long story short, he was coming to the city, and they were doing a benefit. I mean, he's going to do play. I was like, man, that'd be pretty cool. I like to see the guy. I read some of his stuff. I was doing NPR. It was something like $15,000 a play. No, not $1,500. I'm not. That's not a typo. It's like $15,000.
Yeah.
A play. And I got thinking, it's like, ain't that funny?
Well, the mindset of most corporations are they do not think, but the people who work there does. There's a great book by Paul Hawkins called Ecology of Commerce that actually changed one of the CEOs that is changing policy. Yeah. And, the natural resources. They're plundering something they do not own. And let's take the fracking issue. They are plundering something they don't own. And all this fracking, all those chemicals, I've always said this. What's going to happen if that aquifer is compromised? And let's look at watermelon and cantaloupe that is, 80% water.
If you're on the lake right now, which I did this weekend, that's why I'm not talking much because I'm hurt. There's oil seeping out of the ground. I mean, in the springs and stuff, it's got an oily film coming down.
Yeah. I don't go there much.
Well, I mean, it's not going to be helpful for all those chemicals to be injected into the ground because, number one, what's happening? And I can tell you what is happening because, it's chemistry. They're taking all these different corrosive materials and they are dissolving part of the bedrock. And the escaping gas and the escaping oil from that is what they blow back up with the water. And then they separate it and get the oil and the gas from. But if those chemicals are down there eating away, eventually it is going to get down there to the tectonic plates, and that's what's happening. Growing up in Oklahoma, I don't remember having so many earthquakes, and to where now it's almost like California. We're so used to them.
Well, when this first started happening several years ago, apparently our state does have a Department of Geology or a state geologist or something, and no, it wasn't for the oil. It's just geology in general. And it's not for the mining or the gas industry. It was just a state geologist. He knows where the sandstone is or whatever. There's coal here, whatever. And he did a study on it, a commissioned study by the state, and he said, these earthquakes are caused by fracking. End of discussion. This is not ambiguous. These recent earthquakes have been caused by fracking. And of course, the governor immediately said, well, this study is not complete, and we're going to do this some more, and so that's what happened.
Sure, and David Boren came out and, even made a comment that the OU geologists that were saying that fracking is bad were kind of silenced. Well, goddamn, Ham, who owns, Continental Resources, was donating a lot of money to OU. So he actually sent an email to Boren saying, hey, I give you all this money, quiet your...
Yeah.
We do, kid.
Yeah.
But fracking's not. Just corporations in general are destructive to the environment, and the reason is they don't have to pay for it. The taxpayers get to pay for either cleaning it up or living with it.
Sure.
And you pay for your health for living with it.
Well, and it goes back to what's brought out in the movie is, their mindset is that. They don't care.
They don't have to pay for it.
Yeah.
It's not their business. Their business is to make profit for the investors, and they got their lawyers over the many decades to arrange the laws and the regulations to where they don't have to clean up their own messes.
Corporations do not think, but the people who work there does. You got to get back into that. I mean, when you look at the industrial age and what came out of that, we've already talked about the use of alternative media with our Muckrakers podcast and how writers, exposed what was going on. We definitely have the internet now that is out there, but it's the complacency issue. I mean, if you listen to this podcast,
you can find anything you want to hear.
Yeah, that's willful ignorance. If you're ignorant about any of this, it's because you want to be.
Oh yeah.
I mean, remember, we used to have Walter Cronkite and then the other guy.
Yeah.
And now we've got
Harry Reasoner.
There was a guy before that though. Reasoner.
I know you're talking about.
Murrow.
Two of them.
Murrow.
They were a team. No, there was a team of them. Two guys. And that doesn't matter.
Harry Reasoner.
Yeah, I don't know.
All right. Anyway, we're showing our age. But the point I'm making is, in American history, there was a point prior to the Civil War where the people had more say over corporations than we do today. So when you think you can't go up against a corporation, yeah, you can. Because history will show you that we can.
Oh, they used to revoke charters all the time.
We've got to get active. And what's the one thing that we end the podcast with? We tell people, get involved with a grassroots movement. If you're not actively involved in something, this shit's going to continue. And the more that I study America, I wish I could get in a time machine and go back to the 1940s. I'd be happy. I would be happy. America was much better in the 1940s and 50s than it is today.
Hula hoops and all that.
Yeah.
Hot rods.
Retro bikes are out now.
And some friends of mine are libertarians. And libertarians are very good at, let's not get into government regulations so much. But I do want to talk about government regulations. When we're looking at nostalgia and we go back, there was a time in history where the corporations were out of control. Los Angeles, Chicago, in New York, had all this smog. And the EPA, Environmental Protection Agency, came around. And it started putting sanctions and regulations onto the corporations, and the smog left.
Well, leaded gas in the 70s.
Lead.
Yeah, we were getting lead in the ground in their blood, and they fought that tooth and nail.
Yeah.
It was in the air.
Oh yeah, it's in the air. Yeah. And violent crimes went down because of it. Yeah. We were living poison.
So there are good reasons to have certain government regulations controlling what corporations can do.
I've definitely got a libertarian slant, but I don't agree with the libertarian platform at all. I mean, they've got some crazy freaking ideas, but they act like everything can be self-regulated, and that's just not the case. That's just not the case.
I mean, they're self-regulated today because the corporations are self-regulating themselves.
I believe that could work under certain strict conditions. And we've talked about this, such as capital punishment for false advertising. If the free market, if everything was true, that you read on labels and advertising, if everything was true, then the free market would work well.
That's the bane of our world right now. Is we got to the point where we don't know what true is anymore.
So if you had capital punishment for false advertising and you pursued that vigorously, then you could have a libertarian model with very few other regulations.
But I will say this. I do think that the states have got to get more rights back into their hands. We've got to lower the big government. But one of the first things that needs to go is, these corporate entities that are running the politics. And we have the power to change that.
We always have.
Yeah, we always have.
So, but it's the knowledge of the people that there is a problem, and like I said, now with the internet, it can only be willful ignorance.
Sure.
If you want to know about something, you can find out about it in 5 minutes.
How many people in today's age, the millennials, are even aware of the fact that the U.S. Senate used to be not electable? They were the wealthiest men of our nation put there. And that was done by the Constitution. Okay? And even our framers knew that democracy is the best policy, just like Aristotle did in his writings, and Plato. But the problem is,
I think Plato thought it was the biggest thing in the world against him. He was totally against that.
Aristotle, though, was, but he said, you have to put the wealthy in charge because they're the ones with the money. And what did our forefathers do? They realized that too. Madison fought tooth and nail for democracy, but said we had to put the wealthiest there. And that's why the wealthiest were the senators.
I'm very unprogressive or whatever, but I can totally see the argument for that. You got to think that,
But the point I'm trying to make is everyone wants to say we live in a democracy. It was never a democracy. Never. It's always been a plutocracy. Always. From day one.
Well, the problem with a true democracy, it's like the thing of like there's two wolves and one sheep, and they're going to vote who's what's for dinner.
Right. So, we've never been a democracy, though. We're not supposed to be anyway.
And the problem with everybody having a vote is that the thing, God must really love poor people because he sure makes a lot of them. Mm-hmm. Well, when all the poor people have votes and politicians realize this and they pander to them, you set up policies to where that's all you do is pander to poor people. And I'm not saying we're not unlike that today in some ways, but that when you only have, like, say, landowners that could vote or something like that, you do have a more sober approach to government.
They had skin in the game.
They had skin in the game, yes.
Yeah, and I'm okay. I've told you both. I'm okay with having some kind of voting test right now today, and it shouldn't be based on race or religion. It should be based on your level of knowledge. Like if you should know the name of the governor of your state or the vice president of the nation to be able to vote.
I mean, I like him. I think Trump still deserves a vote.
If you don't know, if you don't know some real basic stuff, maybe you shouldn't be able to vote.
No, I mean, and all this was orchestrated many years ago by legislation that started cutting down that schools had to teach civics, and if
they don't teach it all now.
Yeah.
At all.
So kids are growing up without the knowledge that we did growing up, understanding how democracy is supposed to work. But the point that I'm making is when you go back and look at our founding fathers, everyone wants to just repeat what they hear. It's almost like Abraham Lincoln said that you can't trust everything on the internet. Mm-hmm. You repeat that long enough, people are going to believe that he said that.
I remember.
Talk about the Mandela effect. But the point that I'm making is when you look back, there are actual books written about the arguments that our forefathers had during the Constitutional Convention when they were trying to draft up. And it's very important to go back and look at those because you see that there was some strong arguments on how much power do we give those that are wealthy versus the poor. Because even back then, Madison was saying, if you give everyone a vote, then, those of us that are wealthy, they're going to get together and vote that they should have our wealth, and then we'll be poor.
Yeah, in fact, I had a government class that basically said the Constitution was to protect the rich people from the poor people.
Yeah.
Well, we're kind of getting off the subject, though.
No, because a little bit.
How corporations get control of the influence.
And you go back into history. You have to look at all the facts, but more importantly, that corporations used to have to answer to the people,
Right.
local resources, and now it's a free-for-all.
Only in this country, though. That's what people, they said this country was extra special when it was founded. It was not like any other place in the world when it was founded. And I have a good example of that about the history of corporations. Corporations came into being when navigation on sailing ships came into being, and world trade. Because no single person, including the king, could afford to, privately finance a bunch of fleets to go out and trade because they lost too many of them.
Let me tell you one more. The military was set up
to protect. Okay,
and they got their funding from the terrorists.
Let me finish. You're right. So if you want to see if the average person who can't read or doesn't like to read wants to watch a movie and find out about this, watch Pirates of the Caribbean. It's an excellent movie to give you an education about corporations. It's got three principal players. It's got the governor, who is the government. It's got, well, aside from the pirates, it's got the pirates, but there's the governor, there's the Navy admiral or captain, whoever, the military, and there is the agent of the East India Company, which is not a fiction. The East India Company was one of the original old corporations in trade. And you look at the dynamics between the governor, the admiral, the Navy, and the corporations, and watch that movie and see who's giving the orders to who.
Thank you for tuning into False Flag, the grassroots activism podcast where together we can change the world. Please like, comment, and subscribe.